Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And welcome to the 26th Annual May W. Neuberger Women's Roll of Honor Awards Breakfast.
Yay.
One of the extra perks of this event is that it's one of the first organized events in which I can honestly say, happy spring, everyone. Now, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like everyone to please stand, and I call upon the men and women of the Color Guard, Manhasset VFW Post 5063, and Manhasset American Legion Post 304 to present the colors. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Charles Berman, our Receiver of Taxes, to say the Pledge of Allegiance, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm now going to call upon Charlie's better half, Lisa Berman, to lead us in the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Lisa. Color Guard, please retire the colors. Please be seated. So good morning once again. Okay. Good morning once again, and welcome again to the 26th Annual May Neuberger Women's Roll of Honor Breakfast. As we all know, this breakfast is in the memory of our wonderful former town supervisor and former state assemblywoman, May Neuberger. May was a trailblazer where trails simply weren't even thought of in many respects. May was a leader in Albany when she was in the assembly, a leader here in the town of North Hempstead, right up until her last days, and it is my honor to continue the tradition of remembering May on this great occasion. In the spirit of May Neuberger, I can tell you with great confidence that today's honorees are among the most outstanding women anywhere in this state, and certainly here in the town of North Hempstead. You know, I've had the very good fortune over the last 3 years of serving on the state board of the New York State Town Clerks Association. It's a glamorous job, which brings me to such wonderful locales as Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. I did get to go to Lake George, but of course it was 12 degrees because it was in March. But in my travels, and especially while waiting for a plane to arrive, I've had the good fortune of being able to not only see all different parts of the state, but also visit many of the historic sites in various parts of the state. And what is always impressive to me, not surprising, but impressive, is how many museums and how many historic homes exist for so many of the great women that have either been born, raised, or chose to make their home here in New York. I've been to the Susan B. Anthony home. I've been to different museums that have honored women of all sorts, whether it be Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Sojourner Truth, and so many others. And the reason why I'm thinking of all of them today is because, not only because it's Women's History Month, but because we are on the cusp of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution guaranteeing women the right to vote. Absolutely. And that anniversary is significant because we all know the history of the women's suffrage movement, the women's equality movement. None of that happened overnight. And in point of fact, many of the same women that we talk about in terms of women's equality and women's suffrage actually started their activism in the abolition movement, in the equal rights for African Americans movement, all through the 19th century, and even before. And it's wonderful to see that so many great women throughout New York started off by caring about the equality and the needs of other people than themselves. And that makes it all the more special today, I think, to be able to honor the 13 women that we're about to honor. So I am so pleased that this is my 6th year I get to MC this event. And I'm equally pleased that I'm able to introduce our next speaker, our outstanding town supervisor, our Women's Roll of Honor honoree in years past, and our wonderful friend, Judy Bosworth.
Thank you, Wayne, and thank you for being such a charming host and for organizing all. Let's hear it for our town clerk, Wayne Wing. So you've been welcome, but I'm going to welcome you again. Welcome to the May Newburgh Women's Roll of Honor. All of this happens because of the hard work of our town clerk, but also because of the great town board that we have. This is the town board that works together. And I always say, if you were to come to a North Hempstead town board meeting, you'd be hard-pressed most of the time to say who the Democrats are and who the Republicans are, because we work together to make sure that we're representing all of the people of the town of North Hempstead. And so with that, it's a great honor for me to introduce our townwide and our council members. I'm going to start, well, you already met Charlie Berman, our receiver of taxes, but let's hear it from him, the most popular receiver of taxes in New York State. We have our councilwoman, Dina DiGiorgio. Our very newest councilwoman, Veronica Lurvy. Let's hear it for Councilman Peter Zuckerman. And we have our councilman, let's hear it for Angelo Ferrara. In the beginning I was saying Ferraro, but then it was made very clear. Angelo's A+, so it's Ferrara. Okay. We have our councilwoman, Lee Seaman. And last but certainly not least, our councilwoman, Viviana Russell. So Wayne had mentioned, I believe, that March may be designated as Women's History Month, but we think that every day and every month should be a month celebrating women because of all the very, very important things that the women in our town have accomplished. And we talk about the suffrage movement and women having the right to vote. Now we've got to make sure that every woman actually gets out there and votes. So I'm going to clap for that because I think that's really important. So the distinguished individuals who are being honored here today have such a wide range of interests and accomplishments, touching on, we have representatives from our local school districts, community organizations, civic groups, religious organizations, charities, and more. And as varied as all of these women are, there's a common thread that runs through all of them. and that's that they took their passion and they found a way to serve others through that passion. They all act as wonderful role models, and hopefully today there's someone here who will be inspired by the great things that you're going to hear that these other women have done. We also have, and I think this is great, so many women who had been honored through the Women's Honor Roll before, but they've come back today to celebrate and acknowledge the newest people who are going to be initiated. So if all of the former people who have been honored, if you could just stand so we can recognize you. So if you notice that table over there, that's a pretty recognized table. So I'm honored to be here today to congratulate all the women on our 2019 Roll of Honor. Wayne had mentioned that I had been honored. I had been honored in the year 2001, and to me this is a funny story. May Neuberger was the supervisor then, and I ran into her at the proverbial shopping place. We ran into her at Food Emporium, which unfortunately no longer exists. And I said to her, May, I'm so thrilled to have been recognized. And her comment to me was, yeah, you were nominated so many times, I never understood why they didn't choose you. So, going along, I would, of course, like to thank Manhasset VFW Post 5063 and the Manhasset American Legion 304 for presenting our colors today. Let's hear it for them. And of course, Charlie Berman for leading us in the pledge, and his beautiful wife, Lisa, for leading us in the national anthem. Thank you. So if you were wondering if I was ever going to sit down, now's the time. I'm going to turn the mic back over to Wayne, and let's get started. Thank you all.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Judy. And anyone who knew May Neuberger knew that those types of great lines just flowed like water from her. She could find a way to put you in your place and make you feel good at the same time. Thank you again, Judy. It is now my honor to introduce our wonderful county executive, Laura Curran, to say a few words.
Good morning, everybody. So there must be something in the water in the town of North Hempstead. As I was making my way and introducing myself to all of the fabulous honorees today, I was reflecting on the fact that I've come to this event a few times, maybe, 4 or 5 times in the past, and every year there are 13, I think, is it 13 every year? So, baker's dozen of fabulous women who are leaders in whatever world that they're in. And I always think, well, how can they keep finding a dozen women every single year? But somehow you manage to do it. Something is going on in the town of North Hempstead. You've got a wonderful leader in the supervisor, who I think leads the way with real grace and aplomb, and I'm very proud of the work that she does. But as I'm looking through all of the honorees, we have activists, an athlete, someone in the military, faith leaders, educators, a lawyer, business leaders, health professionals, volunteers, and community leaders. A wide range of skills and a wide range of gifts that you bring to your communities, to your town, and to our county. And for that, we are all very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. We're going to add one person to the program, another of our great countywide officials. I think I mentioned last year that 3 out of the 4 countywide elected officials in Nassau County are now women, which is really a wonderful thing. And since this woman has subpoena power, I recommend you all applaud loudly our great District Attorney, Madeline Singas.
Okay, don't say that word, Wayne, because you never know what's coming your way. Well, what a pleasure it is for me to be here today. And as a resident of the town of North Hempstead, I'm so proud of all of the women who are being recognized today. I'm so proud of our local government, starting with our great supervisor, Judy Bosworth. Thank you for all that you do. And look at this dais. Look how many women elected officials there are. So I'm very proud to live here, to serve in this county. And I have to, give a shout out to the men who really support all of us in doing the work that we do. I often say I wouldn't be in the spot that I'm in if it wasn't for so many of the men who made a seat at the table for me, who gave me a hand and helped lift me up that ladder. So I know that for all of you women, there's someone there in your life who's supporting you. And that's, when I looked at what everyone was doing, the key is service. And there's so much gratitude in service. And people often ask me, well, what is it that I can do? And I just always say, just do something. If it's volunteering at an after-school program, or donating clothes to a Dress for Success, or giving out food at a homeless shelter. Every little act of kindness, every act of service will help you grow as a person and ultimately will connect us as a community. So that's my message. Keep doing the great things that you're doing. Congratulations to the women that are honored here today. And also remember that there are still women in this county, in this world, that are victimized because of their gender. So that should leave us a little unsettled, and let's make it our duty to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. So congratulations to everyone. Thank you, Wayne, for putting this great event together, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Madeline. The fact that more women than ever have seized the opportunity to participate in public service, particularly in Congress. We now have historic levels. 102 members of the House of Representatives are women, including our great Kathleen Rice, and 25 out of the 100 U.S. senators are now women, including our great Kirsten Gillibrand in the state of New York. Those are really wonderful things, and I think they provide perspective to our government that has long been needed and is well worth the wait, quite frankly. Let me also take a moment to thank all the other elected officials who have joined us here this morning. I am going to mention them in the order in which I either saw them or they were given to me, which is always problematic. On the state level, we have Representatives Joe Galante on behalf of our State Controller, Tom DiNapoli. Our former councilwoman and current New York State Senator Anna Kaplan is ably represented by Sabra Samet. And since Laura's right, there was something in the water here in North Hempstead, our former councilman and now state assemblyman, Tony Durso, is ably represented by Sandy Portnoy. We seem to send our council people out into the world, into bigger and better things, which, not better, just bigger, that's all. It doesn't get better than North Hempstead, I promise you. On the county level, we have a number of our great elected county legislators here. We have our presiding officer, Rich Nicolello. We have legislator Ellen Birnbaum is here. Legislator Arnold Drucker is here. And Legislator Delia DeRicci-Witten is here. I didn't miss anybody in the legislature, did I? Okay, former colleagues, most of them. So, in addition, we have a few of our village representatives. Mayor Paul Airbar is here, along with his wife, former Mayor Doreen Airbar. And the village clerk of the village of Manor Haven, Sharon Abrowski, is here. And at the risk of offending someone, I'm going to say last, but certainly not least, we have the superintendent of the Herrick Schools, Fino Solano, is here. And if I missed anybody, I will have ample opportunity to correct that as we go forward. But let's get started here. We have 13 outstanding honorees, and I can't wait to introduce each and every one of them to all of you. So let's begin. Our first honoree is Simi Ahmed from Albertson. Where is Simi? Simi is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Islamic Center of Long Island. I'm going to have you stand right over here if you wouldn't mind. She's on the advisory board of the Interfaith Institute of the Islamic Center. She's involved in interfaith dialogue and working to build bridges and promote understanding between the various faiths here on Long Island. She's the Muslim chaplain at Hofstra University, where she's involved in youth counseling, interfaith events, and events with the Muslim Students Association. She's also working as a healthcare chaplain in the Northwell Health System. She's a member of the Interfaith Alliance, which is a national organization that aims to protect faith and freedom by respecting individual rights of people of diverse backgrounds. She's a member of the Long Island Alliance of Peaceful Alternatives, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan activist organization providing educational programs on peace and national security issues. She's moderated sessions on Islamophobia and ways of countering extremism at the Parliament of World Religions in 2015. She's been named the Peacemaker of the Year by Pax Christi. She's received the Women's Leadership Award from the town of Hempstead. She's received the Women of Distinction Award for International Awareness and Involvement from Nassau Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority in 2017. She lives in Albertson with her husband and 3 children. Simi, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, we want to congratulate you and welcome you to the May W. Neuberger Women's Roll of Honor. In addition to the flowers and a pin commemorating the Women's Roll of Honor, there is an absolute avalanche of citations and certificates that will be provided to all the honorees as well. But we want to make sure they can get back to their table in one piece without tripping over all of it. So it will all be available. Congratulations, Simi. Our next honoree is Margaret Boras. At the tender age of 17, Margaret played professional basketball for the New Jersey Amazons. Yes, Amazon meant something different before the internet. And she opened for the Harlem Globetrotters at the Renaissance Club in Harlem. In 1979, not 1979, it's too long ago.
No, 1979.
1979, Margot? Mm-hmm. Margot refereed one of the first women's college basketball games played at Madison Square Garden. A few years later, she attained an international basketball rating, and she had the privilege of officiating the game between the People's Republic of China and the Rutgers University women's team. Aside from basketball, she's officiated softball, soccer, track and field, and volleyball. At the same time, she's coached CYO basketball and softball for over 20 years. After her 4 children graduated from college, she earned an associate's degree in physical therapy assistance, a BS in psychology, an MSED in exercise physiology. While attending college, Margot was diagnosed with cancer. And when she recovered, she spent the next 10 years as a member of the Living with Breast Cancer program, organizing and maintaining the lending library and teaching breast self-examination. She became a friendly visitor at North Shore Hospital, stopping at cancer patients' rooms to talk, and I imagine that at times that was incredibly, incredibly moving. The American Cancer Society has sent her to colleges, factories, stores, and community centers to do programs on breast health. The Arthritis Society has had her teach exercise programs, and she continues to conduct classes 2 to 4 times a week right up to this very day. While it may be time-consuming, volunteering is something that Margot has excelled at, And whenever she's involved with helping, whether it be on a retail basis, getting someone to the doctor's office, or teaching entire classes of people, it's always been a blessing, I think, for Margot to provide the ability for people to learn and to understand the importance of their own health. Margot, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, I want to welcome you to the Women's Roll of Honor. Yeah, why don't we, you want to go in front of the podium? As they say, if there wasn't a photo of it, it really didn't happen, right? So there's got to be photos. Our next honoree is Ellen Dresner from Great Neck. Ellen started her career as a counselor for college students at Polytechnic Institute. Her passion for helping students routinely found her outside of her office. She established a tutoring program, a peer leader training program, and secured federal grants to provide support services for disadvantaged students. Originally from Bayside, she resided in Great Neck, has resided for the last 40 years, which is also home to her most recent endeavor, where she has been a non-engineering mentor for the Great Neck South High School robotics team, the Rebel Robotics. That's interesting.
Yes.
Her introduction to robotics was when her son was a part of the team, and she saw its transformational effect on him, both educationally and personally. She's helped the team with fundraising, marketing, and student leadership, but it's her work with the students themselves that really inspires her. She feels it's incredibly satisfying to see how the platform gives students an opportunity to realize their talents and passions, all while learning and having fun. When she's not engaged with the robots, she's spending time with her husband of 47 years, Joel, her daughter, Madeline, and her son, David. Ellen, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, we welcome you to the Women's Roll of Honor. We'll go up front.
That makes more sense.
Our next honoree couldn't be here to join us today, but we want to honor Joan Eachhouse. What's that? No, it's fine. Come on up.
I'm not Joan Shaw, just
No. No, we are joined by Patrick. We are joined by her son Patrick, Paul, Timothy, and Elizabeth here as well. Oh, they couldn't be here. Okay. All right. Well, forgive me. Eshaw? Eshaw. Joan Eshaw has spent her entire life here in the town of North Hempstead. I'm not going to say when she was born, although she gave it to us. She learned at a young age in Great Neck about the importance of faith and community. After graduating from Our Lady of Mercy Academy and Marymount College, Joan met Paul Eshaw and they were married over 60 years ago. They settled in Westbury and raised 8 children. Wow. I have one, and I can't imagine. Cannot imagine. While raising a family of 8 children, she still found time to teach at St. Francis de Chantal in Wantaw. She taught religion to 8th graders, and I have an 8th grader. I know how difficult that can be. She got them ready for confirmation, and she's been active at St. Bridget's in Westbury, volunteering as a lector, a Eucharistic minister, and as a leader on the parish council. She was also very active in St. Pius X Prep High School, where she's a leader in the parents group. Upon retiring from teaching, you can imagine why, after all that, she decided to work for St. Bridget's, running their parish outreach. In that role, she was able to reach hundreds of people in Westbury and Newcastle, helping the needy. She made sure people had food, clothing, shelter, the most basic essentials that anyone can ask for. She raised money to ensure the people in these areas had those basic necessities. Thanksgiving was always a particularly busy time for Joan, and in her own unique way, she convinced many in her community to give as much as they could so that less fortunate people could enjoy the holiday. She liked to share with her family that when much is given to you, much is also expected to be shared. Even at the age of 84, I promised I wouldn't give that away, sorry. She continues to work for the betterment of her community. She loves her church, her family, and her community very much. In addition to the 8 children, she has 16 grandchildren. Truly an inspiration for her entire community. Patrick, on behalf of Joan and on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, we want to welcome her to the Women's Roll of Honor. And you'll pass these along there? Absolutely. Yeah. Our next honoree is Nancy Feinstein. Nancy is a community leader with deep involvement in the Herrick School District. She became involved with a program known as Girls on the Run, a curriculum-based program that meets twice a week after school for 10 weeks. It provides lessons designed to build girls' self-worth and help them feel greater confidence in who they are. As a coach, Nancy has inspired many other women to volunteer as coaches and assistants to help positively impact the lives of young girls. She has worked tirelessly to fundraise and bring in sponsors so that the program can be offered to girls on a scholarship basis who might not otherwise be able to participate because of financial constraints. She was the PTA co-president of Denton Elementary School, the co-president of Herrick's Middle School PTA, and co-president of the Herrick's Council of PTAs, before joining the Board of Education as a trustee, where she has served both as vice president and president of the board. She would like to thank the people who nominated her, many of whom I suspect are in the room today, and she lives in Herrick's with her husband Adam and her 3 children, Jordan, Zachary, and Randy. Nancy, on behalf of an incredibly grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Our next honoree is Diane Finge Ducharme. Diane is a partner at Pryor Cashman, one of the major law firms in this world. And for more than 20 years, she's handled complex intellectual property matters, which for those of you lawyers in the room know that intellectual property is really a specialty. It takes a really strong background in whether it be engineering, science, anything of that nature in order to really excel, which clearly Diane has. She's widely recognized as a go-to lawyer for trademark, trade dress, false advertising, and copyright disputes. She's a leading trademark lawyer she was declared a leading trademark lawyer by World Trademark Review's WTR 1000 every year for the last 7-8 years. She helps companies ranging from small Bitcoin startups, and I'm hoping at some point to get an idea of what Bitcoin really is about. I realized I'm old when I couldn't figure out what it meant to have Bitcoin, to global fashion, luxury goods, and cosmetics brands that scatter throughout the world. She co-chairs Prior Cashman's Women's Leadership Initiative, a platform for women attorneys at all phases of their career to engage in professional training, philanthropy, and mentoring. And she's a frequent contributor to CNBC's Nightly Business Report. An active supporter in her community, over the years she's been honored to provide pro bono legal counsel to vital local organizations, including Sensory Beans and the Parent Resource Center. Diane, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Thank you. Our next honoree is Elizabeth Johnson from Manhasset. Elizabeth is the first child born of Polish immigrants and survivors of the Holocaust. She attended Garden City High School and graduated from NYU School of Business and Public Administration with a dual major in finance and international business. She was recruited by Citicorp into their Management Associate program and began her career as a tax professional. She earned a master's in marketing at Fordham University, and while at the bank, she met her husband Rex, and they came out to Manhasset in 1990, where they raised their 2 children, Maximilian and Meredith. As a first-generation American, Elizabeth was raised with the concept of truth and justice to assist children. And as I said, her parents survived the Holocaust, and they instilled in her the importance of helping those less fortunate and to aid the innocent. She became involved in local civic organizations and quickly rose to the positions of president on many of them, including the MWCABC?
Manhasset Women's Coalition Against Breast Cancer.
I thought so, okay. But I wasn't going to guess.
That was your second guess.
The Newcomers Club, MAC, the Manhasset Summer Center, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, and she worked to help make the Mary Jane Davies Playground a reality. She's been heavily involved with the Manhasset School District and serves on countless committees, ultimately serving as the SCA Executive Treasurer. She taught religion at St. Mary's and has served as a lector and an extraordinary minister. She's worked tirelessly at fundraising for, among other groups, Adventures in Learning. She continues helping children through her efforts in the Kiwanis Club of Manhasset, Port Washington. And she is co-president of the Manhasset Chamber of Commerce and serves the community as editor of the Manhasset Press. Elizabeth, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. I know. Our next honoree is Louise McCann from Great Neck. Louise attended St. Anastasia's Elementary School and then high school at Cathedral School of St. Mary in Garden City. She graduated from Elizabeth Seton College with an associate's degree, and following her graduation, she started her career at J.P. Stevens Company and left the company in May of 1986 when it was sold and divested. She returned to college in 1979, still working full-time, where she achieved her her baccalaureate degree from New York Institute of Technology. Wishing to give back to her country, in 1975, she enlisted in the U.S. Army, survived basic training at Fort McClellan in Alabama, and she retired from the Army nearly 30 years later with the rank of Master Sergeant, serving, as they say, nearly 30 years of active duty and reserve. Following her retirement, she joined the Corporal Charles A. Fowler Jr. American Legion Post 160 in Great Neck. She currently serves as post commander and chair of the Memorial and Veterans Day parades in Great Neck. With the legal training she received in the Judge Advocate General School, she has started working as a paralegal in a Nassau County personal injury defense firm, and is still happily employed there 33 years later. When Louise commits to something, she's in it for the long haul. It's coming up, I promise. There's still more. Louise is an active member of the Irish American Society, and she works on their St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. You are involved in parades all the way around. And Louise has served 1.5 terms as a village trustee in the village of Roslyn, right? She's been selected as a member of the town's Veteran Advisory Committee, which Judy would never have let us get through without mentioning. Very proud of the Veterans Advisory Committee. They do a great job. And she wants to thank all of her fellow veterans and all of her comrades in the VFW and American Legion for participating and nominating her. Louise, on behalf of the town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Thank you very much. Mr. Alcott. Our next honoree is Angelica Medina from Westbury. Angelica is the bilingual outreach coordinator for the Adelphi Breast Cancer Program's Sisters United in Health initiative. Her work involves the development and implementation of breast health community education programs that aim to decrease the health disparities experienced by women of color living in underserved areas. She's provided thousands of medically underserved women with the education and resources necessary for breast cancer risk reduction and early detection, overcoming individual and social barriers to screening access and improving their health outcomes. She's worked closely with the community-based organizations and leaders to reach out to populations in need across Long Island and has participated in advocacy efforts at the state and national levels. She's also a board member of Westbury Arts, a nonprofit organization that provides innovative arts programming that connects, educates, and inspires the community. She's been appointed chair of their development committee, and in that role, she's involved in the process of identifying sources of funding and grant writing, and aids in the effort to increase collaboration and engage community members, particularly the Hispanic community. Angelica came to the United States with her family from Bogota, Colombia, when she was 16 years old. She graduated summa cum laude from Stony Brook University and completed a master's degree in health education from Columbia University's Teachers College. When she's not working or volunteering, she's enjoying spending time with her family and friends, practicing meditation, and cooking vegan dishes that may or may not turn out edible. And living with some vegetarians, I can tell you, it's often the latter. Angelica, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Congratulations. It's somewhat bittersweet to introduce our next honoree, Muriel Neufeld from Great Neck, who is being honored posthumously. The town of North Hempstead lost a steadfast social justice advocate when we lost Muriel. She fought against racial discrimination, capital punishment, and gun violence for more than half a century and helped to bring about significant social change. She was a lifelong member of the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island, and she shared the group's principle of dedicating one's life to the greater good of humanity. In 1959, when Prince Edward County in Virginia closed its school doors, its public schools, in order to avoid forced integration, Muriel collected books from all over Long Island and drove them down to the local churches in Virginia. After learning that the Nassau County Family Court did not have a child care center for children while parents waited for their cases to be called, she worked with the staff there and started one right in the courthouse. She was vice chair of the Nassau County chapter of the New York Civil Liberties Union. She founded the Long Island chapter of New Yorkers Against the Death Penalty and New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. She is survived by her sons Russell and Peter, and I don't know if Russell or Peter has been able to be here today, but I do know that we have a number of representatives from the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island, and we're going to ask them to come up and accept her nomination on her behalf. Thank you very much. Our next honoree is Wanda Xuan. Wanda Xuan. There we go. Congratulations. Thanks. Wanda is a stay-at-home mom, which we all know is the hardest possible work to do, who is a hardworking volunteer in the North Hempstead community. She volunteers at the Suu Kyi Foundation, an international humanitarian and non-governmental organization, and has participated in the foundation-sponsored events such as free health clinics, clothing drives, soup kitchens, Earth Day events, Hurricane Sandy disaster relief events, and many, many more. She's the coordinator of the craft program for the New Hyde Park Senior Club and assistant coordinator of the craft program for the Joy Fu Chinese Senior Club. She organizes projects and manages supplies and budgets for these programs. She's also a translator for the Joy Fu Chinese Senior Club, where she translates announcements into Chinese, thus bridging the gap between Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. She volunteers at the Chinese Center of Long Island, where she participates in the twice-annual fundraising tag sales, and she's able to accomplish all of these things while caring for her household that consists of her husband and her 2 children. Wanda, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Thank you. Come on up. Our next honoree is Allison White of Port Washington. Allison graduated from Barnard College and NYU's Wagner School of Government and Public Service. And along with her husband, Jonathan, and their 3 sons, she moved to Port Washington over 20 years ago. Since then, she's utilized her advocacy, fundraising, and management skills, combined with tremendous energy, and anyone who's ever been around Allison for more than a few minutes knows that level of energy, and her creativity to benefit others. Within the Port Washington Public Schools, she's produced and secured funding for arts programs and engaged community members around educational governance and school funding issues. She served on the boards of AGATE, which is Advocacy for Gifted and Talented Education, and the Schreiber HSA. She founded and raised money for an after-school chess program for over 600 children. She's the co-founder of the Port Washington Advocates for Public Education, an advocacy group focused on whole child education policies. Hundreds of parents have relied on Allison's counsel and support to advocate on behalf of their children. She's a member of the Board of Trustees and the chairperson of Temple Beth Israel's First Social Action Committee, where she coordinates programs on topics like gun violence and civil rights. In cooperation with the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, she engaged 4 synagogues to collaborate and enable the resettlement of a family from El Salvador. She serves on the Temple Beth Israel Nursery School Committee and has consulted on strategy and grant writing and was honored by the synagogue in 2013. She's a proud member of the League of Women Voters, and you're in good company today, I know that. And she served on the board as program chairperson, creating some of the most well-received programs on behalf of the League of Women Voters. She's a past president of the Barnard College Club of Long Island, and through Long Island Together, a community group supporting marginalized communities, Allison was instrumental in launching the Summer Together program, which provides scholarships for summer camps and public pool memberships to low-income families. As a member of their Rapid Response Network, she's provided advocacy and support to immigrants, and she teaches a citizenship preparation class for immigrants at the Port Washington Public Library. Allison, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, thank you and welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor. Last but most certainly not least, Nancy Wright from Port Washington. With a name like Wink, I'm used to being at the end myself, Nancy, so you're in good company, okay?
Always happens.
Nancy has called Port Washington home for 57 years. After growing up in East Moline, Illinois, and attending college at Lawrence in Appleton, Wisconsin, and she graduated from Michigan State University. The Army moved her and her husband, and we were lucky to get her here in Port Washington. After working in the young television industry on a program called Omnibus, she retired to Port to raise a family. Nancy is totally involved with the Friends of the Port Washington Library, having served as president and now as vice president. She not only raises money for the services not covered by our tax dollars, but advocates for the libraries and all libraries throughout our system. Nancy has also served on the Beacon Hill Neighborhood Residents Association, exactly, as a past president, a current board member, and a founding member of the Beacon Hill Book Club. That's no surprise, given your library background. They try to support the best interests of everyone living in the Beacon Hill community. When her 3 sons were young, she was actively involved in the Port Public Schools, serving as president of the PTA at Flower Hill Elementary, Schreiber High School. She also was president of the Port Washington Parents Council, served on the Port Washington Student Loan Committee, an alcohol task force, and the Interagency Coordinating Council. She's a member of the Retired Educators of Port Washington. She was also a den mother for 3 Eagle Scouts and an exhibited silversmith. That is something, I've known Nancy almost 30 years. I didn't know that.
There's
There
one.
we go. There's some of her handiwork. You can come up and see. She is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Long Island North Shore Alumni Club of Pi Beta Phi National Fraternity for Women and a member of the Long Island Panhellenic. She's a past president and current board member of the Pentwater, Michigan Tennis Club, okay, and chairman of the dock committee of the Bass Lake, Michigan Sailing Club. She's also been a 25-year member of the Pentwater, Michigan Community Band and is currently a member of the Freeport Community Band playing the saxophone. Nancy, on behalf of a very grateful town of North Hempstead, welcome to the Women's Roll of Honor.
Thank you very much.
How about a nice round of applause for all of our honorees? I gotta tell you, I get exhausted just talking about what it is they all do. I can only imagine what it would be like to live those lives and to be family members. So, as I always say on behalf of my own family, I want to thank all the honorees and their families because their sacrifices help make all the contributions that these honorees have given us over the years possible. So let's have a round of applause for their families as well. And now it is my singular honor and joy to bring up an old friend, someone who has made this breakfast special pretty much since its very inception, and who always regales us with wonderful tidbits of literature, of poetry, and just of American culture. And that's our wonderful, our jewel, Shirley Romaine.
Always a pleasure to do this. But, you know, it's been a while since we've talked about May. So I thought maybe I'd do some things that related to May. We're sitting in this lovely place that May was really responsible for. So let me begin with phenomenal women. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to fill a fashion student's prize. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally, a phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as soon as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down upon their knees. And then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, It's the fire in my eyes, and the flash of my teeth, and the swing of my waist, and the joy of my feet. I'm a woman, a phenomenal woman, I say. A phenomenal woman, yes, that's me. Men themselves have wondered when to set in, and they set in so much, but they can't remake the inner mystery of my touch. When I sit down to show them, they will still say, I can see. I say, it's the arch in the back of my back, the sun in my smile, the ride of my breech, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenal, a phenomenal woman, that's I. Now you understand just what my head not showed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk about real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, in the bend of my hair, and the bound of my head, and the need for my care, 'cause I'm a phenomenal woman. Yes, phenomenal woman. That's me. I'm okay. Now this is really about May. When we dedicated this place for her funeral, for our first major event, I was called upon to do this. And it really speaks to her and her influence on our town, on our folks, on this marvelous place. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us, our souls, dependent upon their nature, now shrink, weazened, our minds formed, and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in the tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, something recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly, see with her hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpens, gnaws on words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them. Take leave of us, our souls, dependent upon their nature, now shrink, weazened, our minds formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance. When grazed trees fall, we all know what our place should be, that we care what they have done, what they have given to us. We haven't given back, but we remember them with all of our hearts and all of our souls. And I like to think of May when I think of that. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to do it.
Okay, let's have another round of applause for Shirley Romaine. As we bring another Women's Roll of Honor breakfast to a close, there are a number of people I need to thank because obviously this doesn't happen by itself and it certainly doesn't happen because of my efforts alone. We have a number of outstanding sponsors. Our lead sponsor, as always, Flushing Savings Bank. Flushing Bank. We have additional sponsors: Capital One Bank, KISS Products, Empire National Bank, Hawkins, Delafield and Wood. Those are our main sponsors for this event. Let's give them a round of applause, please. And on behalf of Flushing Bank, I know we have Melissa here today. Where is Melissa? There she is. So we can all thank her. Their commitment to this event has made it possible each and every year. So thank you, Melissa. I also want to thank our event committee, the people in my office who make this happen, because this starts months in advance. First and foremost, Brandon Gimpelman, who we've seen running around all day long. There he is and back. My two deputies, Eileen Cranberg and Nick Guarelia. We've got Chase and we've got Henry here somewhere, and they've helped out tremendously as well. I also want to thank our communication staff, Carol Chartier, Victoria DiStefano, Rebecca Chang, Matthew Leonenko, Alan Ginsberg, who puts all this on tape, and who at 2 in the morning makes sure that you have something to watch when you can't sleep. And if this doesn't put you back to sleep, then I don't know what to do for you. I also want to thank Tom Dykeman and everybody in our reproduction department who made the programs today. I want to thank our great supervisor, Judy Bosworth, once again, her entire staff. Our receiver of taxes, Charlie Berman, and his staff. Our town board staff, they've all done a tremendous job. Our Community Services Commissioner, Kimberly Corcoran-Galante, where is she? Kimberly is a whirling dervish at every single event she sets her hands to. I want to thank our Administrative Services Department and Pete Hoda, our Commissioner. And I want to thank all of you for being here. One last thing. There is a group of anonymous women, some of whom are in this very room, and I will never tell who they are. The women who are honored here today are not picked for their political connections. They're not picked for their popularity. They are picked by a group of former Roll of Honor honorees, who actually review every single application and have done so for my entire tenure, and I think for most of the last 26 breakfasts. They review everyone. This is an apolitical process. They do an outstanding job each and every year. I can never fault them for the women they've honored. They do a tremendous job. I want to thank them. They know who they are, and you don't. So. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank our hosts here at Harbor Links. I see they redecorated the place for the occasion. It looked outstanding. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed breakfast. Please enjoy the rest of your day. I ask all the honorees to come up here. We're going to try to take at least one group photo. And for the rest of you, have a great day and enjoy the rest of Women's History Month.